let's start. How's the audio? Let's see. Good. Alright, looks like we're just gonna go and get ourselves a queen. Get ourselves a free bishop. We could probably win this position up a bishop. Looks good. Let's go for the mate. So what we're going to be doing today, excuse me, is we're going to be analyzing our games. So if you have a game that you would like to analyze, feel free to send it to me. And we can pull it up. The way that I recommend that people send it to me is via Discord. If you have a link to a Lichess board, we can also put that there. I probably have a game worth analyzing as well. Here, let me pivot to that. Just look at my recent games. Let's take a look at this game with Jake. I'll bring it up right now. Kami, you're just the first one here. There are other people. Oh. Let me just adjust that a little bit. All right, there we go. So this is a game that I played yesterday, and if you guys have a game that you would like to analyze, feel free to send it to me via Discord. Let's get both player times on the board here. 1 second, everyone. Times are on the board. So this game, let's roll back to the beginning. Maybe give you all a view of the top. There. All right, so Jake played c4. Jake pretty much always plays the English. And I played b6 against him in this game from yesterday. And the idea of this, I guess in a nutshell, is that if they want to fianchetto their bishop, we're going to be a little bit faster than they are. Like if he does it right away, then bishop b7 is coming up. And that could be kind of inconvenient, potentially. Like here, if you have to play knight f3, you might find yourself in an uncomfortable pawn structure that you're not familiar with. So this is one of the key ideas with b6 against the English. It's not the only idea, it's just one idea. Now, he played d4 on move 2, which not all English players feel comfortable doing. And I think this is actually a good decision. This would transpose after e6, which I played, to a Queen's Indian type thing. And so I've opened up the opening explorer here. You can see all the different options that people have. And e4 is a main option. a3 is also a big option. And knight c3, which he played in the game, was like the third most common thing. Let's take a brief look at a couple of these alternatives. So if you play e4 here, and let's suppose, this isn't forced, but let's suppose that black just plays bishop to b7. Here, if you play knight c3, bishop b4 is going to give some substantial counterplay to black because they're threatening bishop takes e4, and you need to defend it. For example, if you play bishop d3, then f5 is possible, and that could be uncomfortable. For example, you take, take, queen h5, and instead of g6, which would probably lose, you can play king f8. And even though black had to move their king, they're going to get this rook, and that's pretty great. So that's one of the key ideas. But knight c3 is not required. You could just play bishop d3. And after bishop b4 check, instead of knight c3, which would transpose, you could play bishop to d2. And here, I guess you could take with either piece. Maybe now that the bishop's gone, you would consider taking with the queen so you can still play knight c3. And after a move like f5, knight c3, white is not obligated to respond to this pressure that's building. They'll eventually just have a very solid position. Hello, Santosh. Welcome. If you have a game that you would like to analyze, feel free to send it to me either on Discord, or if you have like a Lichess link, if you can get that to me in another way, that would be cool too. So bishop d3 is strong, and that's part of why e4 is a popular move for white here. It kind of neutralizes the bishop b7 issue. And furthermore, if you play bishop b4 check instead, you can also play bishop d2. So it's avoiding all those bishop b4 issues that come up after knight c3, which is the game that happened, which is what happened in the game. a3 is another way to try to deal with this. It's kind of saying, I don't know if I want to play e3 or e4, or when, even if I know the answer to that question, but I'm going to stop you from playing bishop b4 anyway. So these are viable alternatives. One downside maybe of a3 is that I could just play f5, and normally black doesn't have this freedom to get some share of the center like this. And I think maybe many people playing black would feel pretty good about that. So knight c3, you might consider a little bit inaccurate because it allows bishop b4. But in the game I played f5 anyway. Bishop b4 is probably a little bit more precise. In order to avoid bishop takes c3, there be queen c2. All right, Santosh has compliments for me already. Says my face looks weird. It looks different from how you imagined. Underneath of my beard that no longer exists. Don't worry, it'll be back in a couple days. All right, so queen c2 would happen, and at this point, we can choose between moves like bishop b7, which also kind of prevents e4 probably because we could play a move like queen h4. This game was played yesterday against Jake. Viewer game. And if you have a game, feel free to send it over. We can analyze that too. So after a move like queen h4, bishop d3 would protect the pawn. Bishop takes c3, and they have to take with the pawn. And I feel like white would not be so happy with this, because the whole reason you're playing queen c2 in the first place is so you don't have to get this maybe not very good pawn structure. And black's getting f5 here. So this would be maybe a more precise way of continuing. But I played f5 right away. And part of why I'm cool with playing knight f5 right away is if black tries to stop bishop b4 with a move like a3, I can prevent e4 entirely, which is also nice. White would have to play a lot more energetically to get e4 at this point, in my opinion. So the downside of this, I guess, could be that after a move like knight f3, bishop b4, queen b3, bishop takes, queen takes, let's say knight f6. I don't know, this looks okay. I thought maybe that the downside could be that white's development is comfortable. Maybe they get the knight on e5, but that doesn't look like it's a major concern. So this seems like a fine move order at face value. So e4 is played anyway, which is interesting. Frequently, white will try to prepare e4 so that they can maintain that central pawn presence when they play this kind of like English or d4 style. So just allowing me to take right away is pretty generous. Now knight takes e4 happened, and at this point I played bishop to b7, and we're out of the Lichess book. So one of the ideas that might come up when the f pawn is gone is queen h5, but you'll notice that in this position that's not really a major concern. You know, maybe in this position you'd be a little bit worried about your king safety, but there's not really anything going on here, especially since we could always just trade off the knight if it gets too dangerous. Kami's looking for a game. Okay, cool. So queen h5 is not really a thing here, but it is something to look out for as the game develops. Now, after bishop d3, moves like queen h5 could become quite dangerous because of the possibility of moving this knight somewhere and capturing on g6. Okay, so bishop d3 I would say is a good move. Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all. Now bishop b4 check. I threw this in here just to get some development. It's not strictly necessary, but if I wait for a long time, I might find myself wondering what I'm going to do to complete my development. Like, let's say that I wait, and instead of playing bishop b4, I play let's say knight f6. And then white maybe plays bishop g5, and I play bishop e7. And white does something that doesn't blunder a piece. The threat is knight e4 here. Maybe bishop takes f6. And the idea is if I take with the g-pawn, then there's queen h5, and that's really not good for black. And if I take this way, then after queen h5, if I play g6, they could add in... well, maybe they don't even need to add in knight takes f6. I was thinking maybe, but another good option here is just queen h6. It starts to become kind of awkward to... excuse me, finish the development. So by doing something kind of swift here, instead of knight f6, by adding this check, I gain a little bit of time to finish my development, and in fact he kind of allowed something extra. I thought he would play bishop to d2, and after bishop takes, maybe queen takes, knight to f6, threatening to take the knight. They might trade off, or they might maybe more resiliently play f3. And then I'll just kind of finish my development. And if I had to have my dark bishop in this position, it would be kind of hard to find a useful square for it. It would definitely be on e7. So trading it off was good. That one guy, welcome to the chat. I could analyze one of your games. The easiest way for you to send me the game is probably to join the Discord. Alternatively, you could send me a message on Lichess with the PGN. Here's the Discord link if you're a Discord using person. Hello Pacha, welcome. Thank you for joining. I'm already getting some chat hate for shaving. Hopefully no one's going to unsubscribe because I shaved my beard. Alright, so let's see, knight f6, right? This is not a big deal. But keeping the bishop on makes it a little bit harder. So knight c3 was kind of cooperative. But the idea of this is to go for the attack. And I thought that Jake would actually play something more forcing. He played queen g4, which is strong. You know, it's attacking two things. I thought he would go for this one. Yeah, you could message the PGN on Lichess. I'll be watching my inbox. So if I play g6 here, bishop takes g6 is a kind of like puzzle streak type thing, where if I take it, I lose this. Probably taking the rook is the best. There might also be compensation after queen g6, but this, this is a materialistic way. Actually, maybe it's smarter to just take here and then take the bishop to avoid losing a rook. That looks pretty good. Hello, Savvy Chess. Welcome. Thank you for joining on YouTube. Here after king f8 or something, just munching that would be good. So this is all the tactical idea behind queen h5. So I would be forced to play king f8, actually. My Elite Chess username is ChessCoach Robert. Here, let me send you my profile. Make it easy for you. Alright, there it is. Shoot me a message. So after king f8, I looked around. There's no real, not that one. There's no real checks here. He could try something like bishop takes h7, but it's a little bit contrived. I think I'm just going to get material. But this would at least get some compensation. Now, after queen g4, I just went ahead and took the rook. After queen takes g7, the rook's hanging. But a typical way of defending this is with queen f6, defending through the queen on the h8 square. And so that's how I ended up managing to get a substantial material advantage in this game. Now, this was a simul game, and Jake was able to get some counterplay here. Eventually, I was like in danger of flagging because I had to defend against these pins and things over and over again. I think giving up the bishop was too much. Maybe I was just hoping to confuse in the time pressure. Now that I'm looking at it with some time for the first time, I don't think that really has changed my assessment. Like, let's say I just play bishop h4, just keeping the pressure. I don't see any major like tactical issue with the simple move, which makes me think that it's probably good. This is very debatable. In fact, I considered this during the game just to keep some pressure on, but there's a good chance of getting checkmated with this kind of lewd behavior. For example, I don't see like a real mate, but I was looking at something like this, where like I have to move my king, and then there's a rook g5, and he goes here, and then somehow this knight flies in and does something. Like there's some danger in a simul if you're just not paying attention. But this should also be playable. But I decided to come back and just try to be very safe, very demure, and that seemed to work out for me. But there was this big like checking moment when I started running out of time. Eventually, I was able to advance my pawn, which sort of incentivized him to put his king in front of that pawn, which led to this checkmate. All right, let's see. Do I have any messages? Let's check that inbox. Okay. Nothing yet. I'm going to do a couple puzzles while... Oh, hold on, I think I got something. All right. Elo Gambit declined. Solid username. Let me drop this into a Elite Chess study. Thank you for sharing. And learn, study. Maybe I'll make a study. Just Coach Robert's study. That's me. We'll call this analysis with viewers, and I'll put the date. And this will be only chats members, computer analysis is contributors, only me, contributors. All right, boom. And we'll drop this in. Okay, cool. How's that looking for everybody? Muslim, yep. New look. Same old me. Or what's the name of the Tame Impala song? It's one of those things like brand new person, that kind of thing. With the same old mistakes. Yeah, that's what it was. All right, so we've got a game between 1,300 and 1,200 rated players. Pretty close, actually. And they're playing what will... Ooh, interesting. This was shaping up to be kind of Najdorfly, because after d4, the way that things usually go here is with pawn takes d4. Hello, Zoe. And after this, if you play knight f6, the pretty much only good move is knight c3. Although in this position you can play f3. Best move here for black is e5. And another move that you could technically play is bishop d3. But, this is kind of just like a worse dragon after g6. So usually people will play just knight c3 here, and you get yourself into either like a knight orf, or you get yourself into like a dragon type thing. Now, black chose d, none of the above, and played knight c6, which is a big mistake. I actually had, I think, exactly this position in one of my first tournaments as black, and had a very similar journey with the knight. It was at Super Nationals in 2010, I think, and I was just trying out. It's like I want to play something different. I was kind of just feeling my way, and I didn't know that allowing white to gain this much space with d5 is very dangerous. It also gains time. That's usually a sign that things may not go your way. If you find yourself having to repeatedly move the same piece many times in order to find a useful square, that's probably an indicator that you should have prevented that attacking thing. Max J. Hastings says, have I tried Chessfish before? It has an interesting interface for analyzing the board. I have not tried it. Also, welcome to the chat. And I use ChessBase a lot, and I use Lichess a lot. Those are pretty much the only two interfaces that I use, and they pretty much work for me. But always happy to see people trying other things. Now, after d5, knight b8 is probably the best move. Muslim says, guess the only good move in Sicilian is taking on d4. Good question. Is there any other move besides taking on d4? Knight f6 is technically playable, but it's not very good. Not impossible. It's like important to study this with white. For example, if you play the kind of expected move, d takes c5, knight takes e4, things can get kind of hairy. I think white is still better here, but I don't really remember off the top of my head. Like, I know that if you take on d6, there's like a lot of compensation after, for example, knight c6. If we take here, we take, and then there's like bishop takes e7 is required, because if you take here, you're gonna lose a piece. Like if you take this rook, then they get a queen, and you have to take it. You have to take it, and then your knight's trapped. This is good for white. So usually here they'll take on e7. I'm kind of walking down memory lane here a bit, so forgive me. And black has like a lot of compensation here, if I remember correctly. Probably not what white wants in their opening position. So good alternatives include like knight c3, which will probably transpose on the next move to a normal opening. Like here, this is back into knight orf territory. And so you probably should not step into the weeds after knight f6. It's an interesting thing if you're like really trying not to play the beaten path. This move is way more common. Very principled. So yeah, in general, if you have to play a move that's not pawn takes d4, I would recommend knight f6. And knight c6 is very bad because of d5. So they found the right move. And knight b8 is probably the best. Alternative could be like knight a5, but you'll notice that you have very few squares for this knight, so you're in danger of getting trapped. Muslim is asking, reading opening books versus positional tactical books. I think opening books are probably the most what's the word for it? I don't want to say the most useless, but like they get out of date as soon as they're printed. And I also think openings are very personal, so it's good to kind of develop your own personal knowledge instead of just like having an opening book and following it. I think that positional, like general chess knowledge, like middle game understanding and tactical books are more valuable in general. Like if you had to pick 2 out of 3 or something. Yeah, Santosh, maybe I can pick an over the board game from the past. All right, so knight a5 is an alternative, but I like this one more. Now, knight c3 is there. More ambitious for white might be c4. And the reasoning behind this is you could prevent a future b5 break, and you could also discourage a future like e6 and pawn takes d5 situation. If you play knight c3 right away, then this break is kind of attractive, and this is what black played here. Bishop c4. It feels like you're using a sledgehammer for like a simple nail. The bishop is a powerful piece, and now it's stuck babysitting this pawn. You're not really threatening to take on e6. That's not dangerous. So I think what black should do in this kind of situation is a move like a6, with the idea of playing b5, and you'll notice if the bishop goes to b3, that c4 would trap that bishop. So probably they would be forced to play a move like a4 here. Yeah, it's like a modern Benoni. Muslim says that it's like a modern Benoni down a tempo, though. Hold on. So this is like a modern Benoni down a tempo? Oh, yeah, for black, of course. But still, I think, white should play go for c4. Knight c3, e6, bishop c4. I think e5 is even slower. Like Muslim's point that it's like a modern Benoni where you're slow. That is an important point. For example, if you played d4, knight f6, c4, c5, d5, e6, knight c3, you'll get a very similar position. Not like totally identical, because in this case, white is forced to take with the c pawn. If you have e4 already, you have an alternative. So if you compare this position with what happened in the game, or let's say if you played c4, and then e6 and knight c3, this is clearly like a much slower version. And in the game, when white plays knight c3, it's not a Benoni structure anymore because the pawn's not here, but it's a very similar strategic thing in that white has a lot of space and they want to prevent black from trading their pieces. And when you play e6 and then e5, you kind of enhance that effect where it feels like white just has a big lead in the development and black is struggling to create counterplay. A really killer move here for white would probably be like h3. Just don't let them develop any piece whatsoever for the rest of the game, and black will probably just get completely crushed in just a few moves. For example, if you play a6, just play a4 as usual, and you're starting to wonder, like, where do I even put my stuff? If you put your knight on d7, it'll just block this bishop. If you put the bishop on b7, it'll be out of place. It's very, very hard. So after castling, bishop g4 is exactly the right thing to do. You should probably trade off that bishop. With such a big development lead for white, it's hard to endorse. After like h3, you're also much worse. Queen takes f3, and white has kind of a free hand here. Very, very difficult. But still, conceptually correct. If you don't play this now, you're never going to get a chance to. So you may as well. Now they've reacted probably poorly. I think probably h3 was a good move. Queen d3 is also fine. g6 was played okay, reasonable. Get this bishop out. Here's h3, and they took with a queen. You'll notice that white is wasting time here. They played all these moves to accomplish something they could have accomplished in just 2 moves. So that's kind of helping you maybe regain some ground. Queen g4, also very slow. Why are they playing like this? I think the idea for them is they want to play bishop to b5, make you block with the knight, and then trade down. But that actually benefits you. So knight f6, good move. Bishop b5 check. Knight b d7, good move. And they don't have any like advantage from the last couple of moves. Queen g3, castling. Bishop g5, a6, bishop e2. Suddenly black actually is maybe even better here, because white played slowly for a couple of moves. So that was very resilient play from black's side. And if white wanted to crush a little bit better, first of all, let's just pretend that they still want to play queen d3 or whatever. They could have played h3 in the first place. But after bishop g7, to be even more crushing, you might consider like maybe queen g3, so that after knight f6 you can just play f4, and we're just going to go straight for the heart. Just open these lines. It could be taking here, it could be f5. If they hit the queen, we don't care. Excuse me. Probably just simple queen f3, although you could try queen g4. Yeah, I think this is going to be much better for white. And they could do it slowly. They don't have to do that straight away either. White can always take time to like play bishop to e3 and rook e1 and a4, and then play this queen g3 and f4 idea. So this was all very slow. White didn't know what to do, and they now are probably slightly worse. Knight d1 is very strange. It's kind of like a prophylactic move. You think you're going to have to do it anyway, but they haven't played b4 to attack your knight yet, right? Like that was the threat here. So this gives an opportunity maybe for black. This is a calculation moment. Everybody might want to think about, what if knight takes e4? Is this worth playing? What do you guys think about this? I'm going to just look at it for a second. I think it's worth playing knight takes e4. Reason being, so if they move their queen, you just take the bishop. So they're forced to take the queen. You take here. If they take the knight, excuse me, we take the bishop, and we won material. And if they play a move like this, with the idea of like threatening to take the rook and taking this very important d6 pawn, we'll just take on e2 with check, and that's clearly winning for black. So this was an important tactical moment where black could have taken over the game, in my opinion. Queen b6 is played. Kind of a stereotypical move. Like, I don't think it's really that well placed there. Just getting out of the pin. Kind of a maybe fearful move. So bishop f3, defending the pawn. Okay. a5. That seems very slow. One thing I like to do in positions like this is sometimes I'll play c4 with the idea of knight c5. That can also be good. Another thing that you might consider doing, I don't know. There was there's a lot of danger here, really, because let's just see how the game went. So after a5, there's knight e3. We might also consider queen h4 here, just keeping kind of a nagging pressure. Idea is that you could try to trade off, or you could try to take this piece, or you could play bishop g4 and create some tactical mayhem here, or you could play knight e3 and knight g4. So knight e3, they're kind of just choosing one of those. That's fine. b4, this is a big mistake. After b4, they can just play knight c4, and this is like a forever pressure. This pawn, not so much, mostly the center. After a move like probably queen c7, just to not lose this. White's just, quite dominant here. It's hard to, maybe queen h4 now, so that you can't play knight b6. The problem with knight b6 is that you would lose a piece. So this would be queen h4 is probably a good way of like pinning down black's pieces. And next on the menu would be something like bishop g4 and f4. You could also play slowly. You could play like this rook to e1 before you do all that. So those are big problems. But white went the other way with knight g4, which I think is quite cooperative. Maybe you would consider just taking this off. And after bishop takes g4, maybe just knight to f6, because again, we're not worried about trading this off. If they go back, what we've accomplished is we traded the knight on d7, which had no real future here. And it's just gone. We don't have to worry about it anymore. So white did all that work just to trade off a piece that was difficult for black to trade. So that would be a good transformation. So knight takes g4 was worth considering. Now a4. Like, what exactly are all these pawns doing on the queen side? Like, what are we going to accomplish? Let's say you get to play all your pawn moves. Like, I don't really know what's going to happen. If you play like a3, they could just play b3. If you play c4 and c3, they can play again b3. So I'm not sure that's doing much. If you play b3, I'll just take it. So I think black is kind of lacking some clarity about what to do in this position. Maybe a good opportunity here was knight to h5, because queen h2 is super tucked away in a strange way, and if queen h4, let's see, maybe f6. Just kicking the bishop back. If you try something like bishop h6, it can just be ignored. Oh, give me 1 second, you guys. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, so this would be kind of interesting to play. Now, after a4, queen h4, queen d8, wow, repinning yourself. Looks very dangerous. I'm already curious about if there's a win. Clearly just trading down doesn't work because we have 1, 2, 3 attackers. They have 1, 2, 3 defenders. So starting the trade does not help. But maybe we would just play like bishop e2, which has multiple ideas behind it. One is to go here and then take this knight. And the other idea is to play f4 take and then bring the rook to attack on f6. So I think white should choose one of those ideas. That would probably win. Now knight h6 happened instead, and that really didn't do much. Arguably this could have made black's position a little bit better, because now whatever happens on f6 or h6 will not come with check, and that could give black a little bit of freedom. a little nice thing to look forward to. Queen e7, really kind of burying yourself here. It's very, very hard to get out of this pin. Maybe, all right, let's see, what's a productive way for black to play? Do you guys see anything good for black to play here? I'm not sure. Maybe you could try just desperately to open these lines. Like if you play a3 and they take it, like just out of like sheer madness, you could get your rook involved, and that'll be kind of useful. And if you play like a3 and they play b3, maybe just sack the c pawn. Just try to get like any kind of open lines for this rook, because this is probably this piece is pretty much toast, but like this rook on a8 is an eligible candidate to actually help in the position. All right, so queen e7, c4 played. Kind of aimless play for white. C4 takes away one of those big winning ideas, so that's kind of helpful for black. Taking en passant opening lines is good, probably. One of the issues that might arise is they might try to bring their rook, so you have to jump on it. So there's rook b8, makes sense. Rook b1. I think this is a mistake. You can't give them the file. What I'm debating here is, how do you make progress without blundering a piece over here? They also have that trouble. They probably should have used this rook so that they would have freedom with the other rook, but they trapped this rook inside. It would be interesting maybe to just start running with the king. Like, what if we brought the king all the way over here? Like, we just go over here, and then they have to, like, figure out what to do with their life. I'm not sure what they would pick. I think this is a good move. That one guy realized bishop e2 after analyzing the game. Yeah, that's a pretty major idea. It comes up over and over again. Did you realize it because you wanted bishop b5, or did you realize it because you wanted f4? Both are good ideas. I'm just curious what your taste was. Yeah, there was certainly some back and forth. I mean, like, black played one of the slowest openings possible and then ended up, like, ahead in development. That's crazy. You realize both? Okay, good. Okay, so if they play, like, bishop e2, maybe we just start running. This could be a way to just escape somehow. Like, maybe we tempt them into winning a pawn, and then that gives us counterplay. For example, if they do this... to try to win a pawn, like so. I don't think this is, like, an improvement for white. They end up in an opposite bishop situation where black is on the move and could probably create some counterplay. For example, maybe a3 with the idea of rook b2. Could be pretty annoying. So this could have been a defensive idea for black. This, on the other hand, just, like, seals the fate. After rook b7, it's just lights out. There's nothing to do here. You defend, and you can't move any of your pieces. Very good, like, kind of asphyxiating play from white here at the end. So really clutched up after a little bit of a shaky transition from the opening. Very interesting. So that one guy was playing white in this game, right? Also known as No Name. Yeah, nice game. Very interesting to see. I appreciate you sharing. Does anybody else have a game? Otherwise, I can go find one of my own games. Let me see. Just give me a moment. I'm going to leave it on here. I'm going to dig around in my computer. See if I have a game worth sharing. Where are my over-the-board games? Alright, I found them. Let me just pick a good one. I haven't played in several years, really. So I'll pick one from last time I played. Okay, here's a funny game. Maybe this one. Let me add it to the study. I'll be right back to the realm of the chat in a moment. I'm glad that was helpful, that guy. I appreciate you sharing the game with us. All right, here's a game of mine from... Well, let me make sure I don't have any embarrassing comments here. All right, cool. Just moves. In fact, I'm gonna delete all the commentary that I have. I want to just think about this freshly. I don't really want to. Oh, there's a clear annotations and variations button. That's cool. That did not used to exist, as far as I know. That's very convenient. All right, cool. So let's get started. I was playing white in this game. And my opponent played e6, which is an interesting option for black. I've been thinking about this more often recently, just because I think it's an interesting way for black to be very aggressive and try to play for a win. So I played d4, and they took, which is typical, right? Like we just saw, if you play a move like knight c6, then d5 will come. And even though the pawn's there, that's not helping you much at all. Alternative could be a move like knight f6, but this is also not very good because after e5, knight d5, c4, your knight is really getting kicked around. I'm going to get d5 in anyway. And this is like a big advantage for white. So after e6 and d4, taking on d4 is like even more required. So knight c6 is played. Knight c3 is what I did. You can play other options here, but I think knight c3 is very interesting. I think the main move here has been knight b5 in the past. And the idea of this is just to drop the knight on d6. Or if they prevent by playing d6, you will do one of a couple things. One is to place bishop f4, e5, and bishop back to e3, provoking e5 and then creating a weakness on d5. This is one major idea. And the other thing that you might do in this position is c4, which is just like you're playing a Maratsi bind structure and hoping that you can prevent black from getting all of the breaks that they want. I don't think this necessarily works out though, which is part of why I've been choosing knight c3. Like let's say you play knight f6 and this knight goes on c3. a6, knight a3, whatever. Black can already play d5 here, if I'm not mistaken. It's not like the most common move played according to this Lichess opening book, but after d5, it seems kind of like the Maratsi didn't work out. Let's play a couple moves just to see what people have done in the past. In this position, this pawn is like nearly a goner. You could play a move like bishop to c4, but black has a lot of activity here. This is difficult to really hold on to. I think I would be pretty happy with black if I got this position, even if I am playing down a pawn. It's just super awkward. White has to defend this pawn forever. They don't get to play super actively. That's nice. So so that's the thing. You know, Maratsi bind doesn't necessarily get you the like calm, easy advantage that you might hope for in this line. And if you go for this line that I just showed a second ago as well, the main way for you to keep the pressure on is to move the bishop again to g5. Idea is to remove this knight so that when you bring one of these knights to d5, that this knight just doesn't exist and can't challenge you. So this tends to go with moves like, not bishop e7. Bishop e7 runs into bishop takes f6. So I think people usually will play queen a5 here, something like this. I remember there's some kind of like engine draw here where the best moves for both sides are just to go back and forth. Something like this has been played. Kind of bizarre. Very theory intensive. Okay, so alternative was knight c3, and that's what I played in the game. And this invites some new opportunities for black, like bishop to b4. This is the, I think this ends up being called like Lowenthal variation or something. Like after knight b5, knight f6, knight d6 I think was the move, and after king e7, this looks like white should be better, but it's actually like white is overextended because this knight is kind of hanging, like the queen has to defend it. This pawn is hanging because this is pinned. Bishop takes e3 is also threatening to ruin the structure. And if you try to trade off your knight in order to not have to worry about it anymore, black has a ton of development. And having the king on e7 is not a big deal in this kind of position, where black actually has the initiative. So, so this is one line that is kind of like possible for black and kind of and interesting after knight c3. I think the way that you should deal with this is actually knight takes c6. And after d takes, you just trade everything off. And I don't remember if it's bishop d2 or if we just don't care. I think usually if you're playing for a win, you just should like let them go with the bishop pair and act like you don't care. Like if you play like bishop f4 or something and they trade this off, we don't care. We have 2 bishops against their 1 bishop. We have a little bit of a development advantage. This is probably enough to play for a win. So knight c6 is probably better than knight b5. That one guy asked, do I have GM aspirations? Kind of. I think that it would be nice to have a lifestyle where I could pursue the GM with a clear conscience. I think that would be really nice. I think I know exactly what it would take to become a GM, since I've helped several people become GMs in the past. And it would be cool to be able to do that for myself. There's a lot of like lifestyle things that need to be tuned to make it happen. And I'm definitely not opposed to trying to become a GM like casually, like just, you know, trying very hard when I'm not at work. I think that's also cool. And if it doesn't happen, I think I'm also cool with that. It's gonna be a fun journey, and you guys can all tune in for that. I'll definitely be sharing as I give that a whirl. So one day maybe I'll give it a try. Maybe soon. Okay, so I think knight c6 is the antidote for this one. And alternative move for them, by the way, after b takes c6, I think queen d4 is good. It forces them back to f8, and white has some space advantage, like maybe bishop e3 and something like this. Looks pretty good to me. Okay, so all right, so knight c6, knight c3. They chose queen c7, and there's a fun thing here that I've never seen actually pan out in practice. A lot of the time at a lower level, people will get kind of ambitious and be like, ooh, I'm going to attack the queen. Yeah, we love attacking the queen. And the queen goes to b8. And this position is already better for black. It's a very good counterattacking position. Because after a move like bishop e3, which would be very normal, black gets the counterattacking move a6. And if you play knight d4, then probably after b5, black is already better. Even though the queen's on this weird spot, it makes a lot of sense. It has a good future. Nothing to really worry about. And there is a forcing line that I think only leads to a draw for white after bishop b6. And the idea is that after takes... Oh, no, it's not that it leads to a draw. It's that black is actually better after they sack the queen. I remember now. So after knight takes b5, the threat is simply bishop c7. And you might see bishop b4 check. c3 in order to gain time. Bishop a5. And after... so if bishop c7 is no longer possible, we would just take it. And now they can try different options, including knight c7. And the best move here for black is queen takes c7. And black is better here. This is a fun little line. Hold on, let me just trim this board. It's bugging me. There we go. Oh, 1 second. Make it look a little bit better. Okay, so yeah, after this trade down, black is actually better. They have 1, 2, 3, 4 minor pieces against 1. They have active pieces. It's very easy to get this knight out. There's no trouble with that. They have weaknesses to attack, and I think it's not really that easy for white to do the same thing. Like the d6 square, you could say, is maybe weak, but what piece will white use to exploit the d6 square? They don't have a minor piece anymore that can control that spot. So the weaknesses that black has are kind of like unexploitable weaknesses. You know, maybe they'll play like queen g4. I remember there being some theory here with like various options. But the long and short of it is black doesn't need to give up anything. You could even play like king f8. And if they try to trade pieces, we just don't care. We're just going to get the pieces out. Everything is fine. So this is a cool line. But I've never seen anyone actually like go for this. I find that at a lower level, people aren't even thinking about knight b5. And at a higher level, they know not to play knight b5. So even though it's a very cool thing, you never see it happening. Such is the mystery of chess. Okay, so knight takes c6. And if you guys send me your games while we're doing this, I can happily start on one of those right afterwards. So knight c6, bc6. Muslim is suggesting books for 1800 to 2100 level. Let me look at my shelf. I really like Imagination in Chess. This is a book like pretty much for all levels, but starting around like 1800 to 2100. Imagination in Chess is very cool. I believe it's out of print, but I also saw somebody at a local club with a very new looking copy recently, so it could be back in print. You may be in luck. Imagination in Chess. I'll put it in the chat. The commentary in the book is a little bit outdated. Like there's one section in the introduction where the author is basically like, if you're an adult, like don't even bother. That's very old school, not very accurate. Another good book for like 1800 to 2100 level. I liked Invisible Chess Moves. Invisible Chess Moves was a good book. Yeah, by Pata, I think Gaprindashvili. I think that was the name. Or Asmai Parashvili, something like that. It's covered up on my shelf, so I can't read it from here. I'll spare you. You can look it up. That's the book. Definitely by Pata. Yeah, those are good books. And I think once you get above like the 2100 level book, pretty much everything by like Ogard or Gelfand or a lot of the Yusupov books are really good for that level as well. I can't with a straight face recommend any opening book. I think if you need to work on openings, it's good to do like game collections from strong players with their commentary, like Oakin's game collection, or like Capablanca games. Those are good. That one guy's asking, at the rating range around 1300, what's more important, opening knowledge or improving tactics and positional play? Definitely tactics and positional play. But there are some common sense opening things that you need to get right. Like you don't want to waste a lot of time in the opening, and you need to get all your pieces out. Those are things that if you get it done, you should be fine. Okay, so in this game, I took on c6. I had a funny idea here. There are a lot of other moves that you can play. It's not strictly necessary to do this weird knight c6 thing. Like you could play, it looks like queen d3 is trending. I'm not sure I know why, but that's interesting. Could maybe check it out later. I don't know if I prefer f4, but I remember f4 being playable. Bishop e3 is pretty like normal and logical. Maybe they play a6, and this is a position that's been visited many times. Okay, so I play knight c6, bc6, and bishop d3. And the downside for this is that black can play d5 like right away. They played knight f6, nothing wrong with that. I played queen e2, and then d5. And black has fully equalized. And this is very typical in the Sicilian. If you can play the d5 break, you're almost always fine. Okay, so after d5, I ignored it. I thought the best thing for me to try to keep winning chances is to play bishop g5. I could also take here. If they take with the knight, I'll probably just take these. And this is like just an equal position where black has good center control. Black is probably a little bit better. If they took here, I could probably play knight e4 to try to keep it complicated if I wanted to. And they can also just take with the pawn. They might want to retain their knight so it has some knight e4 prospects. I've never really analyzed this too much. I just want to get my pieces out and try to just challenge black to make some decisions. And decisions they made, in this position they played d4, gaining some space, but also locking the pawn structure. Now at this point, I get to choose where to put my stuff, and I chose to play this backward move, knight b1. And this was debatable for sure. a major thing to calculate is the consequence of rook b8. I think there were other good moves for black here as well to consider. Let me see if I can remind myself. Moves that come to mind are like queen e5 and queen b6 and e5. These are all moves worth considering. But the idea behind knight b1 is that I want to come out here like this. And I'll use one of these squares. So I'm not too worried about the finding a home for the knight. This challenges black to try to find some kind of like quick solution. Something that pressures me while my development is temporarily bad. It's kind of similar to the game that we just analyzed, but in a different way. This one backward move will only be a problem if white is unable to reroute the knight. So rook b8 was logical. I think we could consider some alternatives. Let's say we play queen e5. I think f4 would be a good alternative. This would probably follow with like, let's say they just put their queen like anywhere. Here, for sake of argument, we could just take off this knight and keep rolling. Like it's no big deal. That one guy is asking us, they're trying to send one more after this game. Let's see if we have time. If you send it to me, we could always get it another time. I don't mind having one in the queue. Okay, so queen e5, probably not that great for black. Queen b6, let's consider. One thing that comes to mind, okay, I have multiple things that come to mind. One thing that's kind of obvious is like, you could just give up the pawns for activity. But this is kind of dubious. Well, I don't know. Now that I'm looking at it, it doesn't look so bad. Probably they would just defend their knight. And how would we make progress? Probably with maybe something like this, where we just take it off and then bring the knight and put it on this square. I think they would probably be okay though. Like let's say that they castle. We don't need to jump in right away, so we probably might play like f4. This looks pretty pleasant actually. Like I'm getting maybe some attacking chances on the king side. So yeah, this makes sense. Probably we'd have a lot of compensation this way. Another thing that you can do, and I'm not sure if this works, let's say we castle and they take, and then, oh, I was thinking we would go here and they would take this, but it's actually protected. Let's say that we played this. All right, just to illustrate the concept. Let's say that we played this. No. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. I was trying to see what would happen if we could like make them take this, and maybe we could trap their queen. That can sometimes be fun. But it's a ghost. Okay, so queen b6 doesn't look like it's creating a big issue. Rook b8, fine. Maybe more testing is just bishop e7. But let's see what happened in the game. Rook b8, knight d2. And they did not take on b2. This was probably judicious because of knight d3. I'm not sure if they can endure this. The best thing is probably bishop to b4. With the idea that after like king d1, trying to play king c1, trapping the rook, they can play bishop to c3. But the rook is going to be trapped for some time, potentially. Let's say... No, this is actually a good counterplay. For example, if you try bishop d2, they can just play rook takes b3, hitting the rook. So here we probably have to play something a little more forcing. They take, we take here, and we're threatening king c1, winning the rook. So yeah, I think it was probably a good decision not to play rook takes b2. The rook's getting trapped. So they played queen a5, and I took on f6 because my bishop's hanging. Let's see, did I have to do that? It seems kind of right. For example, if I do this, I'm not even really threatening to take the knight, because if I take this, they would take here. And if they played here, this is probably an improvement for black. Like, this knight could be pretty strong. I don't know, kind of looking at it differently now. Like, let's say I just castle. This looks okay. Oh, you think taking the knight looks good? So if we play e5, they get to play a move. I imagine they would play something like this. Or maybe, alright, so maybe they played queen a5 because they would like to play rook takes b2. So let's say they do that. This might lead to just unnecessary complications with respect to demonstrating the idea. But if they take, and I take here, queen takes g2 is a threat, so probably I should castle. I kind of like black's position here. Okay, so yeah, taking the knight on f6 is also good. There's no problem with that. It messes up their structure. The thing that I don't like about this so much is that it leaves them with two bishops, and even though their pawns are kind of weak, it's not that easy to attack them. Like, they can play e5, and it's like a very stable pawn chain. So castle, queen c7, f4, rook takes, and I trapped their rook. They defended it, and I just decided to like let the rook be out of play. There's no reason to try to go get it. They have to just awkwardly keep these pieces here for a while. Alright, so some active play here. And then I decided to release the rook. I thought I had a better opportunity after knight d2. So they played rook b4, knight c4, and the reason that they're sacrificing for this knight, I think is just that, like, first of all, the bishop is trapped. So they have to kind of not lose the bishop. The other thing is that it's going to get very strong, e5 and knight d6. Alright, so just rewinding a bit. Knight c4 is a threat. If, let's say they had played a different move, like, let's say rook 2, like, just plays that's not going to get under attack, rook b8. Knight c4, bishop b4, d6 is threatening knight d6, which would win the game. So this is why they had to play rook b4 instead. They have to sack for the knight. The knight gets too good. So that was quite dangerous for them. I think this is a direct consequence of them playing rook takes b2. It's hard to really avoid. Now I played a rook to b1 with some aspirations of doing tactical things in the background. You'll notice that this pawn is hanging on e4. The reason that I was fine with it hanging, I think, was that I had bishop takes e6, where if they take, if they play king here, then I just take and I'm up material and have a very active position. And if I take and they play queen e7, then there's rook to b8, winning the game. So so after bishop, so they actually can't take on e4, and that's why they play bishop b4, trying to prevent rook b8 ideas. And I cracked open the position with f5. They have just different options here for how to be worse. They chose e5, and I played bishop d5, threatening to take the bishop. They moved their bishop, and now to exploit the fact that these pieces are aligned, I played a3. If they take on f1, I would play bishop c6, winning the queen and the game. So they actually can't move that bishop. And if they move the dark bishop, then they lose that bishop on b5, and that's really, really bad. So they played rook g8. I played rook f3 because, again, they still can't move the bishop. They played a5 to try to get some compensation for it, but after a takes, c takes, rook h3, they can't defend all their weaknesses. And they made a valiant effort at the end. But there was a tactic, and it didn't work out. Okay, so that was my game. Let's see. Did you guys send me something else? I think we have just a couple minutes left, so I might want to wrap it up here just to not get into a new one. But this has been cool. I hope that you guys enjoyed this, and maybe I'll do it again in the future. I'll try to give it a similar title to this. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a very interesting ending. I always think a lot about the tactical stuff during my over the board games because there's a lot of time. You can try to make things like this happen. Yeah, thank you, Santosh. Okay, well let's wrap it up here. For everyone who's on Twitch, let's raid someone. Who are we gonna raid? Yeah, please send in another game next time we do this. I'll hopefully do this on a somewhat regular basis. I might even do it on weekdays, which I often do tactics and chill stuff for. We can do some weekday ones. Spice it up. Okay, let's raid. Let's raid Chess Optics. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you all next time.